The plane climbed into a starshot Pacific night like a needle threading dark silk. In 14A, Keanu tucked his cap low and watched Los Angeles evaporate. He had learned that most people wanted to be left alone, and fame was just a frequency you could tune down with quiet, with kindness, with headphones and a smile. He noticed details the way actors notice props. The crisp backs of safety cards, the flight attendant's scuffed heel, the way the cabin pressure settled in the eardrums at 30,000 and kept settling. He counted the cabin lights. Warm row, cool row, warm row. He had once counted footsteps to hit a mark on cue. It wasn't so different. The human brain loved recurring patterns, especially when fear threatened to vandalize them. At 34,000 feet, the captain came on. Smooth baritone, practiced calm. Slight headwinds. Smooth sailing to Tokyo. Keanu sipped water and glanced across the aisle. A boy was assembling a plastic model of a rocket without instructions, his mother asleep. 2 rows back, a woman in gray sat ramrod straight, careful eyes, hands folded where a badge might have rested if she had been at work. Off-duty air marshal, he guessed. 2 seats forward, a man with a messenger bag kept checking the time. Keanu flipped his cap backward and tried to sleep. The plane bumped. Not turbulence. Something deeper, like the aircraft had loosened a cough it didn't want to have. A hum altered pitch. One of the cabin lights stuttered and recovered. Keanu unfastened his belt. Around him, migratory murmurs rose. The sigh of travelers recalculating rest. The messenger bagman stood. He didn't look back. He just walked forward and left his bag under his seat, which told Keanu the man was not nervous, only instructed. From the galley ahead came a clink like cutlery but heavier, a sound that didn't belong to any service cart ballet. The oxygen masks dropped with a papery flutter. For a heartbeat, the cabin was a silent museum of surprise. Then came the chorus. The gasps, the trembling instructions, a toddler's thin cry, the calm voice in Keanu's skull that had always arrived when directors yelled, "Action." He pulled his mask down, secured the elastic, breathed. The air had a chemical reassurance. Decompression alarms warbled. The plane began a controlled descent. He did an inventory. Windows intact, no ear-splitting whistle, no mist bloom of vapor rushing to fill pressure loss. The masks were a lie. No, not a lie. A strategy. Somebody wanted the crew busy, the passengers subdued, the cockpit sealed by protocol. He stood and saw the first of them in the forward galley. Black suits, matte helmets with reflective slits, smooth harnesses with cables. They looked like astronauts who had stolen their suits from a boutique. One had a coil of something that glittered like a chain made of spider silk. Another carried a kit labeled, in stenciled letters, Mistral. Sky Pirates, his brain supplied, as if it had reached into a myth cabinet and pulled the correct drawer without looking. And as if to complete the absurdity, a voice came through the PA in a tone sugared with theater. "Good evening, honored guests. Please remain seated with your masks on. We will be done shopping in 15 minutes. The air marshal in gray stood too. Their eyes met across the aisle. A flicker of recognition. Not who he was, but what he was doing. Assessing, choosing a path through overlapping dangers. She palmed something to him as she passed. Zip ties folded small. "If you can help, keep passengers calm," she said, voice a pebble skipping low. "I'm going to the forward interphone." Keanu nodded and moved down the aisle. The men in helmets were not the shepherd kind. They were wolves with leashes they had learned to hold gently so the sheep would not stampede. One blocked the aisle with a cart. Another glided to row 1 and leaned toward a man with a shaved head and a suppressed panic. The messenger bag man. Keanu kept moving. Quietly. He stopped at the boy with the plastic rocket. The kid's eyes were wide above the mask. "It's okay," Keanu whispered. "You're going to keep your mom safe by holding her hand, okay?" The boy nodded, his small hand closing on his sleeping mother's fingers. Behind Keanu, a helmeted man spoke to a flight attendant. "Open the forward service door," he said. Gently. His voice was local weather on a sunny day. "You can't at this altitude," she replied automatically, and some of the cabin exhaled, because knowledge is a kind of power. The man touched a device at his belt, and the air changed again, a subtle pressurization shift. A faint hiss whispered through the seams of the service door. The oxygen masks had been part of it, convinced the airplane to breathe differently, to accept a second lung. Through the oval window at the forward bulkhead, something appeared where nothing should be, a shadow pressed against the skin of sky. It was not another plane, not quite. It was a dark beetle with a gleaming spine and 4 legs that clamped to the fuselage. Between the forward service door and the beetle's belly stretched a tube like a neck, ribs of carbon, shivering with tension. Keanu's mind supplied names: umbilical, pressure tunnel, sky bridge. The pirates had brought their own porch. "Ladies and gentlemen," the pirate continued, "we are Mistral. We don't hurt people who follow instructions. We take only what we came for." "What did you come for?" someone shouted raggedly from row 3. "Insurance," the pirate said. "And a little bit of art." Keanu took 2 steps backward, then 3 forward, threading among the masks and the eyes. He slipped into the galley just as the air marshal, no longer off-duty by posture or breath, reached the interphone. She kept her face neutral as she lifted it. "Flight deck," she said softly. "It's Lucy. Situation." The interphone clicked and hissed. A voice answered, sideways with stress. "We see them. They clamped. ACAR's jammed. We're fine. Do not open door. We're descending to 28,000 to give the pressurization system a chance. Can you keep the aisle clear?" "Working on it," Lucy said, and as she turned she saw Keanu. The look that passed between them was a rehearsal condensed into a look. He reached past the service trolley and pulled out a coffee pot, the metal one with a handle like a promise. He cupped it, and it became a weight, and that weight became a decision. "Don't be a hero," Lucy mouthed. "I've played one," he mouthed back, and somehow they both grinned for a heartbeat in the sawtooth between danger and absurdity. 2 pirates emerged from the pressure tunnel, smooth as raindrops slipping down a reed. One carried a compact rifle with a magazine too small for anyone honest. The other had the messenger bag man by the arm. They moved toward the rear, toward Keanu's aisle. When the lead pirate saw him, he tilted his head, puzzled for a fraction. In that fraction, Keanu stepped forward and let the coffee pot kiss the rifle with a ringing sound that no one would ever forget. The pirate's fingers spasmed. The rifle cracked once, a popped cork, a crater in a ceiling panel. Keanu rested at the barrel, twisting, and Lucy slammed the interphone down and slammed her shoulder into the second pirate. Everything always slows, in the middle of the impossible. The passengers became a freeze-frame gallery. Masks, eyes, fear, hope. Keanu felt the pirate's glove against his wrist, the rifle's cold tube and argument in his elbow. He thought absurdly of choreography, of block and parry. He let the rifle go up and reversed the coffee pot, hitting the pirate's wrist with the handle's arc. The pirate hissed in pain. Lucy drove the second pirate into the sidewall. The messenger bag man crumpled to the floor, hands over his head. More pirates were coming. Keanu dragged the first pirate into the galley and yanked him sideways into the space where carts go when the crew need them most. He zip-tied a wrist to the cart frame. Lucy, whose hands had learned speed in other emergencies, secured the other. The PA crackled with a different voice now, darker, edged with salt. "Don't embarrass us," it said. "Mr. Reeves, isn't it? We know who's on our flight." Keanu looked up at the speaker. "You have my attention," he said softly, so only Lucy heard. He peered through the galley curtain. The leader stood at the forward bulkhead. Helmet off, hair like a storm rising, a coat that might have been cut from a sail, a smile that remembered mutinies. Her eyes had the color of old money. Captain Vale, Keanu decided. She looked like gravity had made her a suggestion, and she had disagreed. "I prefer new friends," Vale said, addressing the cabin like a stage. "But I prefer schedules, too. We want 2 things. One is a case in the hold. It contains a ceramic cylinder, size of a wine bottle. Number 2 is a person. Dr. Niharika Rao. Please stand." A woman in 22C, small and composed, stood with her mask on, as if this were a roll call in a class she had chosen. Her eyes were steady. A few people turned, then turned away. "Thank you, Doctor," Vale said. "We will take excellent care of you. The ceramic cylinder has no value to passengers. If you cooperate, this is an exchange of air. If you resist, we open the tube and make a storm." Keanu stepped into the aisle. "What if I asked you not to take the doctor?" he called. He spoke in the same tone he used with strangers who approached him at gas stations, a softness that invited humans to recall they were human. Vale's gaze slid to him and held, a magnet on a coin. "If you did, Mr. Reeves," she said, "I would tell you that you are famous for kindness and stubbornness. I'm counting on both. Please sit." Lucy's fingers gripped Keanu's forearm. "Don't escalate." The boy with the plastic rocket watched Keanu as if he had ordered the masks himself. Behind the boy, the messenger bag man's hands trembled. Keanu crouched by him. "What's in it?" he whispered, nodding at the bag. The man shook his head. "Phone," he stammered. Keanu opened the bag with calm, a zipper asking permission. The phone sat on top. Underneath, a box. Shockproof foam. He lifted it. The label said 𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐸, Concord, Q/Key. The human brain loves recurring patterns indeed. He flipped the latches. Inside was a walnut case with brass corners. Inside that, nestled like a precious egg, a ceramic cylinder the color of milk. He closed it, fastened it, and felt every story he had ever made collapse toward a single point. This was not a simple robbery. Quantum keys did not fill wine bottle cylinders for fun. The pirates were stealing something that unlocked something that piloted something you did not want pirates to pilot. He rezipped the bag, and then he did something strange. He raised his hand like a student. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 arched an eyebrow. "Captain," he said, "can I bring the doctor to you? I think we could tidy up some of the fear." The cabin's collective heart fluttered. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 laughed softly. "You honestly think I'll let you walk around with a bargaining chip?" "I think," Keanu said, and here he allowed a little of his own myth to shine the way an emergency light shines without heat, "that I can get people to sit down and breathe while you do what you came to do. Every second they're calmer is a second you're safer." Silence measured him. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸's crew shifted, impatient, checking straps. One checked the umbilical strength gauge on his wrist. "Bring her," 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 said at last. "And the bag." Lucy squeezed his arm. "Careful." "Always," he said, which wasn't true, but it kept the story moving. He walked to Dr. Rao. Her mask hid her mouth. Her eyes were the reason some people rescue strangers in storms. He leaned close. "What is it?" he whispered. "Climate array seed," she whispered back. "Failsafe keys. If they break them, they have the sky." He felt his heartbeat like a drummer trying to end a song. "Do we fake them out?" he said. "I can scramble the key if I get to the 𝐸𝐴 bay," she replied. "But it'll show as an error unless we distract them." He smiled. It was not the smile you see in posters. It was smaller, true, tired, ready. "Okay," he said. He took the bag and stood. They walked forward together, slow, actors blocking a scene on a narrow stage. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 watched with bright curiosity. "I enjoyed you in that movie where you played a quiet man who broke the world," she said. "Don't do it here." "I'm just trying to bring peace to the cabin," Keanu said. "This is an airplane, Captain. It likes peace." Lucy drifted in the aisle, a planet with a fixed orbit and a storm at her core. As Keanu and Rao reached the galley, Lucy tripped neatly into Keanu, and in the confusion, her hand moved. Not to take the bag, not to keep it, but to slide from the bag a simple-looking envelope marked 𝐴𝐴𝐼. She palmed it to Dr. Rao. No one saw. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 saw everything. "Cute," she said. "We'll frisk the doctor upstairs." Upstairs. The pirate's beetle had an upstairs. "Good," Keanu said. "She hates elevators." They stepped into the pressure tunnel. The air smelled like new machines and cool plastic. The ribbed tube vibrated with the plane's song, a humming E minor that lived in bones. Through the transparent ribs, he saw the stars shoulder the wings. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 went first, then Dr. Rao, then Keanu. Behind him, one pirate. The tunnel's far end opened into a small cabin like a saloon had married a spaceship. Panels glowed. Straps hung from a roof that was not quite a ceiling. "This is my porch," 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 said. "Welcome." A pirate guided Dr. Rao to a seat. Another took the bag from Keanu and set it on a table. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 pressed her palm to a panel. A scanner hummed. The bag clicked open. The cylinder looked innocent, the way snow looks innocent when it is heavy enough to crush a roof. "Scan confirms it's real," a pirate said. "Quantum lattice intact." Keanu held the eyes of Dr. Rao for a single breath, and in that breath she was no one's captive. She was a physicist with an envelope in her pocket and a brain like a matchbook. "Then we are done," 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 said. "Except for one more thing." She tilted her head. "You're very good at seeing where the furniture is in a room, Mr. Reeves. Are we missing any?" "I don't understand," Keanu said, which was technically true in the narrow sense that he didn't understand why a pirate would talk about interior design at 40,000 feet. "Your air marshal is crawling under the cabin," 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 said cheerfully. "Tell her the avionics bay is very cramped. And tell her if she tries to cut any wires, my engineer will cry." Keanu kept his face a wall. Lucy had found the 𝐸𝐴 hatch, that low, secret door under the carpet where the plane kept nervous systems. Radios, screens, the brainstem of flight. Dr. Rao needed that. 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸, it seemed, had an engineer watching. "Captain," Keanu said, "before you leave, can I ask what the art is?" 𝐏𝐢𝐫𝐸 laughed in delighted surprise. "There's a painting in the cargo," she said. "A stolen one. We'll return it to its people. Don't worry. We don't just steal for profit. We curate. I appreciate a good curation, Keanu said. Can I ask another thing? This stopped her, because greed and curiosity share a ribcage. Briefly, why do this like this? Keanu said. You could have taken the doctor in a car. You could have taken the cylinder at a lab. Why paint the sky with it? Because the sky is where this started, 𝐬𝐽 said. She reached out and touched the tunnel rib, her fingers tender. Because the people with money think the atmosphere is a vault, and we are their guards. Because I like the way stars look when I'm breaking a rule. Honor among thieves is not a myth, it is a schedule. 𝐬𝐽 nodded at two of her crew. Walk Mr. Reeves back to his seat, she said. Very gently. The pirates took his elbows. He didn't fight. He had learned how to slip his weight, so it's there and not there. He let them guide him into the tunnel. As they reached the halfway point, the plane shivered. It shivered like an animal remembering a wound. A chime sang, high and insistent. The tunnel flexed. Behind them, 𝐬𝐽 snapped a look to her engineer. He jabbed a screen and swore. What is that? Keanu asked, loud, not for 𝐬𝐽 but for the avionics bay below, for Lucy's ear if she could hear. Is that 𝑅𝐸𝐷? In another life, you were a quiz show host, 𝐬𝐽 said. It is indeed a ram air turbine. Why would your pilots deploy that? Unless, she looked at the engineer. They cut AC power from both engines. They're trying to reset the pressurization system without our help. The cabin behind Keanu grew louder with the sound of wind biting metal. The tunnel trembled harder. Through the ribs, he saw a flashlight flicker under the carpet near row 12. A square of light where there should have been none. Lucy was in the E&E like a firefighter inside a throat. Keanu looked at the pirate holding his elbow. The pirate's shift of stance, the angle of his chin. This one was the least experienced. He raised his voice further. So if your tunnel fails, he mused conversationally, we all get a surprise. The kind that turns us into a story other planes trade when they pass. Hold him, 𝐬𝐽 snapped, suddenly not theatrical at all. Keanu thrust backward. The young pirate overcompensated. Keanu dropped into the tunnel ribs and the pirate's wrist slapped the rib, jolting the umbilical. The clamps groaned. The passengers gasped. Fear moved like a weather front. 𝐬𝐽's engineer lunged for a control, but at that headline moment Lucy made hers. An electrical hiccup, a planned misstep. The cabin lights died and rebirthed in red. 𝐬𝐽's porch lost her internal hum for half a second. The clamp controls blinked. The umbilical went slack. The tunnel began to separate. The world narrowed to breath and grip. Keanu braced, the rib digging into his forearm like a parenthesis around pain. Behind him, 𝐬𝐽's hand shot forward and caught Dr. Rao's belt. The engineer dove and hit a button that spat emergency hooks into the tunnel's frame. One hook bit, two missed. The tunnel hung with a tilt that would make any trapeze artist swear. Far below, the Pacific flexed a shoulder like a giant rolling over in sleep. Get them! 𝐬𝐽 roared, not in performance now but in necessity. The pirates hauled at the tunnel, trying to reel in gravity's fishing line. Keanu dragged himself hand over hand toward the airplane's side, ribs counting bruises he'd collect later. The young pirate made a grab and caught his sleeve. Keanu twisted and let the fabric tear. He had learned to wear clothes that forgive. Lucy's face appeared behind the forward galley curtains, ghost-lit by emergency strips. She held up a square, the main envelope now empty. She pointed under the seat line. He understood. Dr. Rao's plan had been simple. Drop a physical loop into the right bay, an old-school sabotage of a very new-school key. Captain, Keanu shouted into the tube. If you don't want to lose your porch, you need to release and detach now. Your clamp is fighting the plane. You'll tear the skin. 𝐬𝐽's mouth went to a thin knife. She knew he was right. The engineer shouted numbers. Gravity pulled at everything like a child demanding attention. 𝐬𝐽 made a decision. Release, she snapped. Release, release. The emergency hook spit back into its lair like a serpent. The umbilical bounced. The tube shuddered. The clamps disengaged with the sound of a vault, deciding it liked you after all. For a second the tunnel was a bridge between worlds. Then it shrank like a throat, retracted, stitched itself back to its beetle. The pirate who had released Keanu's sleeve scrambled backward. 𝐬𝐽 hauled Dr. Rao deeper into her porch with a jerk that said she had hauled people from seas much harsher than sky. The tube's final rib spat Keanu into the galley like a cork from a bottle. He slammed into the carts, rolled, and came up grateful for bones he had baffled with yoga. The plane's lights stabilized to a calmer red. The oxygen masks hung like jellyfish. The cabin buzzed with a chorus of prayers from every continent. Keanu stood and went to Dr. Rao's row. The rocket boy was crying in relief and confusion. His mother woke and clutched him. Keanu touched their shoulders and the boy quieted because stories sometimes walk around as people and pat your shoulder at 40,000 feet. Lucy emerged from the forward carpet like a spy returning from underworld. One lock of hair stuck up like a flag. "We cut their camera feed from the 𝐸, she said. "Your scientists scrambled the key handshake. Whatever they stole, it's a blank door now. Will they still take her?" Keanu asked, though the tunnel was already gone. "Maybe," Lucy said. "Or maybe their schedule just changed." The PA crackled. Vale's voice returned, right edges back like a makeup retouched. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "you cost me a minute. I dislike losing minutes. But we have what we need." She paused. When she spoke again, lower, there was something almost grateful in it. "Nice move with the coffee pot." "Nice porch," Keanu said, and some laughs bubbled out because the human brain insists on clapping when a juggler saves the last ball. The beetle shifted away, as silent as a guilty thought. Through the oval window, Keanu watched it peel into darkness, a star that had changed its mind. The captain's voice returned, airplane captain, heavier now with authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have the situation in hand. We are maintaining altitude and turning back to San Francisco for a precautionary landing. Please remain seated." Somewhere in the cabin, someone sobbed the kind of sob that empties a month of air. Somewhere else, a woman laughed and couldn't stop. The rocket boy looked up at Keanu like he had learned a new word he liked saying. Lucy touched Keanu's elbow. "Walk with me," she said. They moved down the aisle, passing faces that would have something to tell their grandchildren. They reached the galley. Dr. Rao stood there, shaken but intact. "I put their porch's handshake in a box they don't have the key for," she said. "They can't use the cylinder without the correct lattice. It will degrade. It's safe. Will they come back?" Keanu asked. "Not tonight," she said. They lost the sky's patience. Keanu nodded and felt the tremor in his own hands. He looked at Lucy. "I'm not a cop. I'm not a marshal. I'm just," he stopped. "You're a person who stepped forward," she said. "The badge doesn't own that." From the cockpit, a chime, the voice of an approach. The cabin attendants, two of whom had tied pirates with laces in good sense, began to move spines back into place. The zip-tied pirate in the cart glared at the ceiling and tried not to look at Keanu, because movie stars were not supposed to be real in rooms where you got caught. The minutes folded. The plane began its descent through a lace of cloud. City lights braided the coast like a necklace dropped on black velvet. As they sank through 10,000 feet, the captain spoke again. "Cabin crew, prepare for landing." The words were simple. They always meant, everything you did up here, make it look like the ground expected it. Keanu returned to 14A. The boy in the next row held up his rocket. "I didn't lose it," he said. "You kept it safe," Keanu said. "That's a big job." The tires kissed runway with a sigh. The plane rumbled, slowed, breathed different. A cheer went up, then another. Keanu laughed, but quietly. He had learned to save large thoughts for small rooms later. On the ground, the door opened. Police in navy and neon moved like pieces on a chessboard that had waited its whole life for checkmate. Paramedics flowed. Statements were requested. Gratitude was offered with the generosity of survivors and the embarrassment of professionals who had nearly lost control and then hadn't. Lucy melted into the choreography. Dr. Rao held her envelope like a rosary. The messenger bag man told an officer he had slept through it all, which was not true, though he had probably slept through parts of himself that mattered. Captain Vale's beetle was nowhere to be seen. Somewhere over the ocean, he imagined, an airship of sorts had curled its spine against the wind and cut its engines and let physics do the talking. Somewhere, a painting was being reunited with hands that could read its forgery. Somewhere, a quantum cylinder was cooling in a cradle that no longer knew its name. Keanu collected his small backpack. At the door, a flight attendant squeezed his hand, her eyes raw around the edges. "Thank you," she said. "Thanks for the coffee," he said, and she laughed because that much was true. Outside, dawn's earliest rumor pinked the edges of clouds. He stood on the jetway for a moment, between Tin Cannon Terminal, the world's narrowest bridge, the kind you learn to cross with both feet, and the smallest possible brag. "Mr. Reeves," a voice said behind him. He turned. Lucy stood there, hair tamed, jacket back on, a pen tucked behind her ear like an apology. "They'll want you to give a statement." "Of course," he said. And then, she added, maybe you'll go get breakfast. Maybe, he said, and it could have meant 100 things. Maybe the world had cracked a tooth, but the smile still worked. Maybe it's good to be small and useful in a big story. Maybe we all get to choose what we steal and what we give back. Hey, she said, as if she had remembered a line and was happy she hadn't dropped it. Careful. Always, he said, and this time it might even have been true. He walked into the terminal, just another traveler among hundreds, and the speakers were already reading a different script. Connections, gates, weather in places that had not been hijacked. He bought a coffee, black, and stood where a morning sun painted a stripe on the floor. In it, he saw his reflection refracted by 1,000 tiny scratches. A boy tugged his mother's sleeve and pointed. Keanu lifted his cup in salute. The boy raised his rocket and grinned. The moment was small and perfect and had no reason to be, which is the best kind of moment. Far above, the sky went on being too big for anyone to own. Far below, ground crews walked toward the plane with orange wands that told metal where to rest. Somewhere in the middle, between porch and fuselage, two worlds had touched and decided not to kill each other. Later, reporters would say, Keanu Reeves helped stop sky pirates at 40,000 feet. They would say sky pirates like it was an invented phrase, which it was like all names we pin to chaos so we can talk about it at breakfast. He would tell his part simple. A cart, a coffee pot, a tube between two stubborn machines. A woman who wanted to steal a painting and a key to the weather. A scientist who smiled while she locked the future. An air marshal who knew the airplane as a friend and not just a ride. He would not say what it felt like to crawl through a rib of sky and feel it swing under his hands. Some things belonged to the plane that shared them with you. When the coffee was gone, he threw the cup away and went to give his statement with a measured step that did not try to impress anyone. That was the thing about stepping forward. You did it once, and the world rearranged itself afterward. You did it again if the story asked. And if the story someday brought the pirates back, if a porch latched again in the thin blue where breath is a promise, he knew what he would say to the captain with storm hair and to the tiny engineer with the blinking screen. Nice porch. Be a better neighbor.